Hey, you awesome folks. Thanks for taking this journey of discovery with your guide, Keith Haney. You're listening to the Becoming Bridge Builders podcast, your favorite podcast for everything from racial reconciliation to education innovation, justice reform, and leading change in the 21st century. This podcast is for people who love to be challenged with difficult topics, but want practical solutions to solve these challenging issues. Becoming Bridge Builders makes change possible. Each week on the podcast, Keith invites innovative thought leaders to share how they are building bridges in their area of expertise. You will hear breakthrough ideas and concepts that are changing the world. He's featuring guests who are best-selling authors, leaders at Microsoft, entrepreneurs, leading educators, professors, lawyers, and so many more. Listen in to learn how you can be the bridge to the change you are seeking.
My guest today is Alex Demzcak. He's a former SEC quarterback for the Missouri Tigers. Alex graduated with a degree in communications and a minor in business. He is a keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and author who challenges businesses, schools, and teams to maximize their impact. He is the best-selling author of The Sale with Jon Gordon. The Sale delivers an invaluable lesson about what matters most and how to achieve it. The business fable teaches 4 lessons about integrity to create lasting success. The Sale has been endorsed by Dave Ramsey, Ed Millett, Michael Porter Jr., Jamie Kern-Lima, and others. He's also author of Thrive You. This inspirational book is a collection of stories from 100 collegiate and professional athletes nationwide. Jon Gordon has mentored Alex for the past 8 years and is part of his core leadership team. Author is co-founder of Streamline Books, a company that helps individuals become an author. He's also founder of Speaker School, which helps individuals become speakers. He's an innovator, entrepreneur with a knack for starting new ventures and collaborating with multiple startups. We welcome Alex to the podcast. Well, it's so good to have you on today, Alex. How you doing?
Keith, it's an honor. Man, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited, looking forward to this conversation.
This is my first star quarterback I've had on, so you are first.
Man, I don't know. You're from Louisiana. You know about star football players when you see one. I'm definitely not a star, so you're just trying to puff on my ego a little bit. So,
well, as long as Mizzou in the SEC, it's really a football league now. So, before.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, man. We joined the SEC, and I will say we came out the gates swinging. We came out the second year pretty good. Then for the last, 7 years, we haven't been too good. But this year,
yeah, I watched this year. Oh yeah,
Mizzou. Yeah, I rushed the field a few times this year with my 9-month-old son and 3-year-old daughter and my wife. So it was a pretty fun year, man. It was exciting.
Yeah, I think your running back was from a Lutheran high school.
Cody Schrader, yeah, and he went to you're right, and then he went to Truman State. Yeah. And he broke all these records D2, and then he just pretty much walked on to Mizzou. Man, he's a believer, awesome kid, hardest worker in the room, man, and just he's a great dude.
Yeah, I think he went to Lutheran South. It was one of our Lutheran high schools in the Missouri area.
Okay, yeah. Truman State. I mean, that's talk about a transition going from D2, and then he just had 3,000 yards or something crazy, and then walked on at Mizzou. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I could talk football day, but this is not a football podcast. So
yeah, I have to keep you accountable for all your listeners if you can't just talk football the whole time.
Yeah, because I could just see him tuning out now, to talk about football. So to get back on track, give us the best piece of advice you've ever received.
Wow. That's a great question. I would say, man, I'm going to go to the Bible, I guess. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll make your path straight. And I remember learning that verse in high school. It was actually kind of a life verse. My mom, I remember just talking with her about, I think I found my life verse. And man, I think just that verse applies to so many situations. I guess I didn't receive it I did receive it from someone because it's in the Bible, but I just think, man, that's such an applicable verse for all of us. It's so easy to trust in your own thoughts, beliefs, but it's how often are we tuned into God to say, God, what do you have for me in this situation? And I think, man, that's probably the best advice I've ever received.
Well, I can't argue with that being great advice as it came from God. So there you go.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm always curious, people like yourself, I'm sure there've been a lot of people in your life who have been an inspiration to you, but give me somebody who's been crucial in your life and then tell me a little bit about them. It's your chance to kind of give them a shout out and kind of tell us what made them so special for you.
Yeah, I think when I look back at my life, I actually had to share, but I got to share my testimony yesterday at our church small group. And like when you share your testimony and share your story of like what you've been through in life, yeah, I couldn't help but just like, people kept popping into my mind of like, oh, this person and this person that was there for me. And so it's like hard to even know where to begin. And that's just the way God's orchestrated my life, and I'm sure your life too. But I guess I would say, I guess in a business context, I guess I would say Jon Gordon, my co-author, author of The Energy Bus. He's the author of 28 books. And I guess professionally speaking, this was someone who I looked up to and thought, wow, maybe someday I could be like this person, or, want to be like this person. And I told him that. I said, he came when I was on the football team at Mizzou, and he spoke to the team. And essentially I went up to him and said, look, I just saw you speak to the entire athletic department. There's something about you. Like, I want to do what you're doing when I grow up. And so I started working for him for free, trying to learn from him. And it's just cool when you identify where you feel like God's calling you and you start taking steps in that direction, to kind of the doors that start opening. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners can resonate with that in their own lives. And so I would just say the mentorship, the way that he's kind of taken me under his wing to learn about being a speaker, an author, all these different things, how to run a business within a godly manner, and has been really, really influential. And yeah, there's a lot more people I could probably talk about, but man, in that setting and the way he still helps me and mentors me now, it's pretty cool to see how God orchestrated a relationship like that in my life.
That's great. So tell us about your personal journey. I'm curious.
Yeah. So grew up in a Christian home. I've been, just so blessed to have amazing mentors, relationships, family, healthy family, and just the way that they raised me and my sister Morgan. And then, got really involved with sports and growing up, and had the chance to walk on at the University of Missouri. And like you said, we were in the Big 12 when I joined, and then we transitioned, as you were saying, the SEC. And so honestly, in a lot of ways, Keith, like my life was good. Like I had no complaints my freshman and sophomore year. It was kind of like when you're in the zone, you feel like you're where God has you, like everything was great. And going into my junior season, you have this essentially like a meeting with your coaches. Every year you'd have it. It would be very chill meeting, no big deal, right? And I walk in going into my junior season, and instead of one coach being in the room, there was three. So that was different. And I walk in, and as I sit down at the table, one of the coaches is closing the door behind him. And so I'm like, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but this is not a good start to the meeting. I'm thinking that through my head, right? And so long story short, the coach sits down and he looks across the table and he says, Alex, we have over scholarshiped at quarterback. We're bringing someone in to take your spot. And essentially in that moment, what he was saying is like, you are not good enough. Like you do not measure up. And he said, you have, two options. Option number one is you can stay on the team as a volunteer assistant coach. And option number two is you're cut like that. Thank you, but no thank you. And he's like, by the way, you need to decide right now in this meeting what you want to do. And so as you can imagine, yeah, I'm sitting there going, like my mind's racing. I've given my whole life to this thing. I thought this is where God had me. And now he's essentially saying you're not good enough. And so in that moment, I just said, I guess I'll be this assistant coach. I didn't even really know what that meant. And I remember standing up, walking out. They kind of shook my hands and walked me out. I walked past the person who took my spot. I knew who that was. And he's excited, obviously. I'm not. And I remember going out to my truck and just parking it. Man, I remember just like letting loose, crying and feeling so humiliated and so honestly angry and mad at God of like, God, you brought me all the way here to do all these things, kid from a small town. And like, this is where my story ends. Like, this is what you've, like, where are you? Like, you've given me this passion for football and now you've completely stripped it from me. why would you do that? Why would you do that to me? And that was kind of my why me moment. And there was a few weeks leading up to the first practice. And man, honestly, it was like really a tough time in my life, because you got to understand, football for me, for someone listening that doesn't care about sports, just think of something that you're passionate about, where you feel like God's gifted you to do that thing. And then in a moment's notice, it's taken away. That was football for me. Football was my identity. That's who I was. If I had a bad practice, my whole night was ruined. Right. And so leading up to the first practice, I'm like, you know what, like just praying, God, make it clear what I'm supposed to do. And, I want to be faithful to where you have me, but I don't see how this is working out. Right. And so I show up to that first practice. I'm like, you know what, I got to be positive. Maybe I'm going to have some big coaching role, and I'll have this big responsibility on the team. I'll get the free Mizzou swag, the free gear, that's what I was thinking about. And I walk in my first day thinking I'm going to have this big coaching role. And this assistant coach, he kind of barks at me. He's like, Alex, come here. I want to show you what your job's going to be. And I'm thinking, sweet, man, hook me up. Right. And he walks over and he hands me this yellow flag. So if you can see on video, it's this actual yellow flag he gave me. You can see it's still breaking apart here. And he said, hey, we need to work on our discipline in practice. And so, Alex, when someone jumps off sides in practice, what we need you to do is take this flag, and you're going to take it. And for your listeners here, you're going to have to just visualize, but you're going to take this flag and you're going to throw it down. Right. And it just like that. Right. And the worst part, Keith, is he showed me how to do that twice. And so I'm sitting there going like, okay, man, what a rocket scientist of a coach. I didn't understand it on the first time, throwing down the flag, but I didn't say anything, of course. But, he showed me what my job's going to be. And long story short, man, my entire junior season, I'm at practice throwing this darn flag. I'm making copies for the coaches. I'm making coffee for the coaches, the practice plan, doing their coffee, all these things, all these like menial tasks. And I'm sitting there going like, God, why would you have me here? What am I doing? Like, I should be out there on the field. I should be out there running out of the tunnel in front of 70,000, not making coffee. Like, what am I doing? And I'll just say it was real. That junior season was so refining. Like, there's so many stories I could tell you about just like the little things. People would tell me things like, hey man, I'm praying for you, or hey, or keep going. I see what you're doing, and they would say these little things that would honestly get me through weeks at a time. They didn't know it, but they were just saying those little things. Right. And so I knew that I wanted to get back on the team my senior year. I had 1 year of eligibility left. And so I'm literally out at practice, being the student assistant, volunteer coach, but I'm also like running sprints after practice. I'm trying to add value wherever I can. I'm like in it. I'm involved. I'm just like, I'm here. Right. And long story short, my senior year, I got back on the team as a quarterback. We went to the Citrus Bowl. It was like an awesome experience, man. We beat Minnesota. And it was just like a really cool just ending to my sports career. But the reason why I'm sharing this story with you is that when I look back at all my years as a player and as an athlete, and then I look back at the 1 year where I was throwing this darn flag, right? I was doing all these small things. What I would argue, and I think a lot of people would agree, is that I had a way bigger impact the 1 year that I had no title, I had no role, than all my years as a player. And so my message that I get to share at companies and teams across America and schools is that leadership requires no title. You don't have to have a title to show up and be excellent in your craft and what you do and love the people around you. And I didn't do it perfectly that year by any stretch, right? I was discouraged all the time. I was like, God, why am I here? But it's like in being excellent in the small things, I think God used that time to really refine me, so that that situation didn't define me, but refined me. And I think that's so often in life when we have these trials, it's like, God, where are you at? And sometimes it takes those things in life for us to kind of, man, maybe just start listening to God for the first time in a long time and say, God, what are you calling me to do in this situation, man? So that's a big part of my story. And now what I get to do as an author and speaker. And like I was telling you before the recording, man, I was just in Iowa last week speaking to a school district. And it's just so humbling to be able to go and, share something that maybe can help one person, maybe can help with whether it's mental health or a teacher or a coach who's going through something. If there's one thing we can talk about that leads them maybe to a better mindset, or maybe I don't know, but maybe someone's led to Christ. And my goal is just to be faithful, to show up and to try to make an impact. And so, man, that's kind of what I've been doing the last few years since I graduated, man. So it's just crazy to look back now and see how God uses these circumstances to really equip us and to refine us for what he has next for us. So, man, that's my story.
Yeah, what you just described reminds me of a biblical illustration of that season of pruning. And pruning is never easy, and sometimes it's very painful. What are some of the greatest lessons you learned? You talk about looking back at that year and you say how much impact you had. What lessons do you have to share with people who are going through a season of pruning? Because you could have just quit. You could just say, I'm done with this. I'm not throwing this stupid flag down. I'm just going to walk away. So, but what lessons or encouragement, if you're in that season right now where God is pruning you and you just go, why am I here? Why does it feel like God's abandoned me? What advice do you have?
Man, that's a great question because, I was tempted at times to be like, God, I'm done. Like, get me out of this situation. Right. I would say one thing that I've really thought about in my own life, getting out of that season is the people who spoke truth to me during that time, the people who encouraged me, who gave me maybe a prophetic word or, an image or just encouragement, man. Like, we as believers can be that for other people who are going through that tough time. And so I think my encouragement would be, are you that person for someone? Because I had many of those people I could point to now when I was in it, right? When I was going through it, that I could say, wow, Nathan, or, down the list of these are the people that spoke truth in my life that allowed me to continue moving forward. And so that's for all of us who maybe aren't going through the pruning, right? But to your question of, if you are going through the pruning right now, I think a lot of times, what's been helpful for me is a long-term vision. When you think about, obviously for all of us as believers, we know that's heaven eventually. And so there's nothing that we can't get through on this earth. When we think about, what our eternal glory will be like. But I think even if you're able to get yourself in a mindset of giving the situation fully to God, to say, God, I don't like this. This is not what I had. This is not the story that I wanted. God, will you teach me? Well, can I be teachable in this moment to learn your ways, to your heart in this situation? A great example, man, is one of my good friends, and I'd love to get you guys connected. He'd be a great guest. He's a color analyst on SEC Network. He played basketball for the Florida Gators, and he got in a really bad car accident. His name's Patrick Young. Do you know Patrick?
I think I remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, man, he just an amazing guy. He got in a really bad car accident that he's unable to walk currently. And we actually just helped him publish his book. It's called Sit to Rise, because he believes one day he will walk. And we all know in heaven, eventually he will be restored, and just as we all will. But man, his joy that he has during these trials of going to the hospital, having infections, all these things, people see it in him, man. They see his joy that he has. They see his love for other people. I did a speaking engagement with him at a college in Texas recently. Man, I was almost just brought to tears traveling with him and seeing the amount of people. He's 6'11", and he's had all. He's in a wheelchair, and just, man, his joy is so infectious, man. And I just think a guy like that is such a great example for me in my own life. Not only, man, I have nothing to complain about. None of us do. We've been given so much, but also, man, how can I learn during the trial? Because so often we want to look past the trial, right? But God has a lot of things to teach us in those moments. And I think the quicker you can be teachable, the quicker you can start to learn some of those truths that will give you peace, because God is a God of peace, not of anxiety or fear or discouragement, but of peace, of truth, of love. So, man, that's what I would say for someone listening right now who's going, oh my gosh, I'm so in it right now. Man, just go bring it to the Lord, bring it to God, and say, God, how can I be teachable in this moment?
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted you tell me about your other book before we get into the sale, but tell me about Thrive You, because I love books about athletes and their journey, but just kind of tell us, what's Thrive You about?
Yeah, so Thrive You is my first book. And so when I was in college, I worked at a summer camp, a Christian sports camp, where as a college athlete, you're a counselor for high school athletes. And So I actually met my wife there. It's an awesome camp. And I just met probably 100 other college and some pro athletes at this camp. And I'm just like, wow, these people are amazing. There needs to be a way they can tell their story, that people can hear about their, what allows them to ultimately thrive rather than survive. And so Thrive U, God just put that vision on my heart. And so it's 100 different college and pro athletes sharing their story, sharing their heart, their testimony. And it's just like it's a devotional book. It's just, man, it was so fun. And so that was my first book. And then my newest book called The Sale, it's a business fable. And so it's a business fable about integrity. So Jon Gordon, my co-author, who I mentioned earlier, he has 28 other books, and they're all a different fable. And so, man, our book is about integrity, and it just really, I think, passionate about the topic, because in a business setting, it's so rare these days to be around people who are actually modeling integrity, right? It's almost like when you see it, it stops you in your tracks, because you're like, whoa, that's like countercultural. But we know as Christians, like, that's what we're called to be and called to do. And so, man, it's a fun, encouraging story. If any of your listeners want to check it out, they can reach out to me. I'll send them a free ebook to check it out, just for any of your listeners, Keith, man, just would love to get that message in their hands.
You just mentioned something I think is really critical, that you don't see integrity oftentimes. Well, in a couple areas, I don't see it a lot of times in business, and I don't see it a lot of times in politics. But how do you cultivate a culture of integrity in business? Because that's really key. You can't cultivate that if you don't have it yourself. But if you do, how do you spread that throughout your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was working with a car dealership, and the CEO of this car dealership, he said, Alex, what's more important, to model integrity or to talk about integrity? And I said both, because the reality is, to your point, who are you as a leader to talk about it if you haven't first shown your team that you're willing to go there, that you're willing to do those things, to live that way? And so I think it first starts with an introspective look. Before it's like, hey, team, you need to go out and do this. It's like, hey, how am I modeling that? How am I doing that internally with my family, with my team? Because I think so many of us live these lives where it's like separate, right? It's like, I got work over here, I got church over here, I got friends over here. But I think in so many ways, like, we know that life is kind of together, and it's kind of all these different things affect another part of our lives. And so my best encouragement to someone who's in, because really, you think about corporate America, it's one of the darkest places today, right? Where, you're just faced with things in corporate America that do test your integrity and your character. And so I think, when you think about, the word integrity, the root word is integer, which means a whole or complete number, right? And for all the math nerds listening, and so I'm not one of them, but if you think about the word integer, it's like to be fully integrated, right? To be the fully integrated leader that God's called you to be, that requires you to be like your whole self. And I think so often when we do live these disjointed lives where it's like, I got work over here, I'm going to act one way at work and then different to my wife at home, man, there's an uneasiness about that. And I think what's so attractive, here's a good example. We had someone for one of my businesses called Streamline Books, where we help people write and publish their book. We had someone who flew in recently to spend the day with me and my co-founder, and a great guy who came. And it was funny, like as we were taking him back to the airport, he said something along the lines of, you guys were exactly how I thought you were, or something. And to us, it was a compliment, because we spent literally the whole day with this guy, and he's someone we look up to in the industry. He's asking us questions after questions after questions. And after that full day of kind of questioning us, not that we're perfect by any means, but he just was like, you know what, you are who I thought you were. And that meant a lot to us, because it's like, hey, hopefully, we're not trying to put on some show for some guy that's coming in to ask us questions about our business. It's like, we just want to be who we are and have fun, be passionate, speak truth, encourage people. And man, I just think it is so different when you see people in the marketplace. I think it was Billy Graham that said that, he predicted before he passed away that the biggest move of God would be in the marketplace, with godly leaders who would take the charge and take the gospel to the darkest parts of corporate America. And so, man, it's fun to even be able to talk about these things on your podcast, because so often I'm on a business podcast or a secular podcast where I get to, here's the cool thing, share biblical principles, but kind of in disguise, right? Because when I was going to speak at the school district in Iowa last week, it's a public school district. I can't go do an altar call, but I can share principles with these kids or these teachers that they have biblical principles, but man, it's trying to bring these people hope. And that's what's cool is you get to have this presentation. And then when that person walks up to you and says, you said something during that talk I have a question about, that's where God just a lot of times will open up the door for you to be able to speak truth, man. And it's really cool how God works in that way.
I love it. I wonder, as I listen to you talk about your new book, how much did your junior year play into this book?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And now a word from one of our sponsors, For Freedom Mobile. If you're using AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, then you're being tracked. Mobile providers collect your location, communications, internet activity, even your financial transaction. They sell that data to anyone willing to pay for it and provide it to the government without a warrant. Switch to For Freedom Mobile, and you won't ever have to worry about big tech or Big Brother tracking you through your mobile phone again. For Freedom Mobile provides secure, unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data for just $29.99 a month, and it includes free internet roaming in over 200 countries. Sign up for the service by visiting forfreedommobile.com and using the promo code BRIDGEBUILDERS to get your first month for only $9.99. See forfreedommobile.com for details, just like the number 4, freedommobile.com.
Massively, because that's what's so cool. And my co-author talks about it. He's like been rated as the number 5 keynote speaker in America, right? And so he gets all these opportunities. People ask him these things. And what's cool is, and I've heard him say this, is, before I ever brought the book idea to him, he saw the trust that was built in our relationship, for 5 years, right before I ever said, hey, I have this book that I think fits in with your other books, right? Because he gets proposals every day that he just doesn't have the time to even get to, right? But I think that's what's been cool to hear him talk about is like, we wrote a book about building trust, but we've actually built that trust first. And I think that's why it's easier to live that message, because it's like we have lived it with each other. I've seen it in him. I've seen the way that he's built a business that's God honoring, that ultimately people will come to Christ because of the work he does, his books. And it's just so cool to be part of that and just to learn from that. So it's a massive part of it, man. And I think the book wouldn't be what it is if that wasn't part of the story.
Right. Tell us more about Streamline Books. It sounds like you help people get that book that's in their head or somewhere out and into the public sphere. So how do you do that?
Yeah, man. So my co-founder, Will Severance, and we co-founded a company called Streamline Books, and we get to help people write, edit, and publish their book. And so, man, it is such a fun job for us. We get to help people like yourself. We get to help people who have a message and a story, and we get to help them. We have different options, but essentially publish their book. And, whether it's a keynote speaker who wants to get more speaking engagements, or it's a pastor who wants to take a sermon series, and put it into a book, or if it's an entrepreneur who wants to tell the story of his or her business, that's what we get to do, man. And we just feel like the world is full of news, and we get to help share stories. We get to help share stories of people who are making a difference, who are making an impact. And so, man, it's been such an honor for my co-founder and I, because we just signed our 105th author, which is crazy, right? 105 authors that we get the chance to work with, but we know that is just scratching the surface. Like, there are so many people out there that we know we're going to be able to help in the years ahead. And it's honestly fun for us because we get to read all these books and we get to learn from them, and we get to learn from amazing people. It's almost like a free master class that we could have never even predicted that we're getting to take in each book we publish and get the chance to read. It's like, wow, that person was so wise, and now we get to learn. And so, man, that's been definitely a hidden blessing of it, is just working with really wise people that we get to glean from. So
here we go. I'm going to put you to the test right here on the podcast.
All right, let's do it.
So I'm working on my dissertation on organizational change in churches. So I just got done doing pooling 220 people to figure out how we actually do Cotter's model of change and bring it to the church setting. So if I came to you with an idea like that, just for people who maybe have ideas, what would we do as a company to help that idea become a book?
Yeah, it's a great question. That sounds like a very fun but daunting project you're doing there, man. That sounds awesome. So, yeah, first thing I want to say, Keith, for anyone that comes to us from your podcast, this is called the Keith Special. We're going to give them a discount. Just I want to put that out there for anyone. If you're listening, you're going to have a book. We would love to do that just for hearing us on Keith's podcast. But to answer your question, in the process of writing a book, Keith, it's like, so much of it can kind of feel lonely, where you got these ideas in your mind. You're going, oh man, this could be a cool story. Maybe you mention it to a family member. They're going, why would you write a book about that? Right. So then you get more, discouraged because you're like, oh my gosh, now my wife doesn't even believe in it. And so then you just hide this thing, right? It's on a Microsoft Word somewhere and no one knows about it, but you, God, and one other person maybe that told you it was a bad idea. And so, man, for us, it's just the power of bringing a team around your dream. And so for us, to answer your question, you would get a writer, an editor, and a project manager. And that team would be your team that would help you in the process. So our options range from, if you come to us with a finished manuscript, we're, copy editing, developmentally editing, and then publishing. Or for some people, our ghostwriting services, where they're going, hey, I got all these stories up here, but I don't have the time to write. I don't have the interest in writing, but I can speak these stories. And that's our ghostwriting package. So one thing that's cool about us is we don't take any book royalties. So we're kind of, in the 6 months it takes to finish our process. Once we publish your book, you're not paying us anything. And we feel really good about that model, because we feel like if we can deliver a high quality product, and deliver it in a timely manner, it's a huge value add to a lot of, aspiring authors and speakers out there. So, man, we could do a 3-hour long podcast on, the ins and outs of book publishing, X's and O's of that, but I don't want to bore your audience. But man, we love getting to help people steward their story. I think stewardship's a great way to describe what we do. We get to steward their story and help bring it to life.
I love that. So of the books once you get these books out, now I know I've heard different stories about how hard it is to get your book on, like Amazon, if it's not the right kind of book. So how do you get the book distributed to a wide range of people? Is it just through like your website, or does it get blasted out all over the place?
Yeah, it's a great question. So primarily what's important for any aspiring authors out there, Amazon and Ingram Spark. Ingram is having your book in the Ingram database allows your book, if you walk into your local Barnes and Noble, that you could search in the database and find your book. So that's why we use Ingram and Amazon. What's really important as well is print on demand. And what's crazy about the publishing industry, years ago, you had to get a huge book order, pay thousands of dollars to print all these books up front. Well, now with print on demand, once you publish your book, when people go to Amazon and buy it, boom, it's like they buy it, Amazon prints it, ships it directly to them, right? So there's just a lot of from a technological standpoint, it's never been easier to get your message and book out there. So we definitely have options on the back end of the publishing side of, hey, here's things, whether it's you want to build out a website or a launch campaign, all these different things that we have resources for. But I would say our bread and butter is, how do we take your message up here, or the manuscript you have, that Word document, and get it across the finish line, design, formatting, typesetting, all the different aspects of what it takes to publish a book, and actually make it happen, so that you're not sitting there going, man, I've always wanted to write a book, but I've never made the time, or, it's not just going to sit there forever. We're going to actually make it happen. So you have this thing that you're proud of to share with the world.
See, now you're inspiring me to write my third book now. I have to get working on it.
Let's go. Come on, man. That's why you have me on here. Come on.
That's right. Exactly. So, Alex, I'm curious, what are you excited about in this season of your life?
Man, that's a great question. I would say, specifically today, something that I've been working through just with our leadership team is just the ways that we can help not only authors, but speakers as well. And rather just, I guess, when it comes to writing books, not just writing a book, but all the things that surround it. So I think just building businesses that can really help people and can really create jobs, can create opportunities, is something that's been really fun. But I would also say, with my 2 kiddos, my wife, who's so supportive, I still do about 30 to 35 speaking engagements a year. And so that is really fun. Like, I know I'm speaking to the Boy Scouts of America on Wednesday, here in a few days, things like that. It is fun to be able to speak and to share at sometimes these companies, these secular environments, but I take those as a challenge to try to show joy and just be an encouragement to people in those audiences. So, man, I would say, man, just getting to do this type of work and just getting to run alongside really good people.
So you got 30 seconds to give a message to the world. What do you want to say?
Man, I would just say, going back to the beginning of this podcast, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and the Lord, he will make your path straight. And I think if there's anything you've heard me say, it's that, because that's what matters. And I think if I heard someone recently say, if you read the book of Proverbs every single day, you'll be rich, and rich in more ways than one. Financially, because there's so many, truly rich financially, because there are so many wisdom when it comes to being diligent and all these things. But you'll be rich more than just financially. You'll have God's riches, which is ultimately what matters. So, man, Keith, it's an honor to be on here and just learn from people like you, man. I was saying earlier, I thought I had a lot of books on my bookshelf, but man, you got like 5 times the books that I do. So hopefully the next time you have me on, maybe in a few years, my bookshelf's a little bit leveled up, man, just so I can get on your level. So
that's only one section. There's another whole section over there of books. So
shoot, man, I'm cutting. Yeah, I'm not even giving you full credit, man. Yeah, I have that too. You just can't see it. You
right.
Just can't see it.
So Alex, what do you want your legacy to be?
Wow, it's a big question. I would just say, man, I had a mentor of mine. His name was Jon Gordon, and I actually had him on my podcast a few months before he passed away. And he was in his 60s, I believe, when he passed, and was in shape, super fit, did triathlons. And what he said someday at my funeral, I want people to say that Jon loved God and he loved me. And I could for sure at his funeral, I could definitely say that. I know a lot of hundreds, maybe thousands of people could also say that. And so I'm stealing that one from my friend Jon, and hopefully when I see him in heaven, I'll just be like, hey, is it okay that I stole that from you all those years? And so hopefully he's cool with that. Hopefully he's cool with it. But man, I think that's the legacy, man. It doesn't matter about the money, doesn't matter about all these other things. But man, did you love God? Did you love people with the resources that you had?
That's great. So where can people learn more about you and follow you and find your books?
Yeah, so my website is alexspeaking.com, alexspeaking.com. It has info on my speaking business, and then also books, and then Streamline. And then for Streamline Books, our website is writemybooks.com. Again, that's writemybooks.com. And like I said earlier, Keith, anyone that we get to work with from your podcast, man, we're going to for sure honor a discount for them. And we'd love to connect with any of your listeners.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for this time. It's been inspirational for me, and it's got me thinking I got to get that book done now. So it was in the back of my mind, but now I got to work on it.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. And hey, you got my phone number, so we'll make that happen whenever the time is right, man. You just hit us up.
All right, Alex, thanks so much. You have a great day.
Thanks, man. You too.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at @BKeithHaney and on Getter and Twitter @RevHeadpin or on his website at alightbreaksthrough.org. Thanks again, and tune in next time.
Do you know that most entrepreneurs hit a revenue ceiling and have no idea why? They're working harder, spending more money, running more ads, but revenue stays flat. My friend Dr. Noah St. John calls this the invisible break. He's giving our listeners a free revenue ceiling audit to help you see what's really holding you back. You'll get a free 30-day membership to Noah Bot, giving you access to Dr. Noah's 30 years of experience to help you reach your next level. But hurry, because there's only 50 available this month. So if you're tired of being stuck at the same revenue level and want to finally break through, get your free revenue ceiling audit at drnoahvault.com in the affiliate link that'll be listed in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at @BKeithHaney and on Getter and Twitter @RevHeadpin. Thanks again, and tune in next time.